afternoon and welcome. My name is Seth Schaefer. I'm the Executive Director with the Southeast Tennessee Resource Conservation and Development Council. We are continuing our series of virtual monthly meetings, and today we are actually live at Red Clay Farm. It's a farm in Bradley County, Tennessee, and we are going to be talking today about cover crops and soil health and how cover crops can help enable better soil health for farmers. Joining me today, I have Jason Miller, Chase Hicks, and Jerimiah Durbin, who are all going to be taking part in today's talk and demonstration about soil health and cover crops. So, Jason, why don't you take it away?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Seth. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having us here today. Hopefully it'll be a good educational day for us out here, and Seth, and also all those that are viewing. Like I say, my name is Jason Miller. I'm the District Conservationist in Monroe in Blount County. With that being said, as we're standing here in the high tunnel, and I'll let Chase discuss about that. One of the things, like through this high tunnel, it's actually was help funded through one of our programs, our federal program, EQIP, Environmental Quality Center program. We take applications year-round. Generally, we only have one ranking period. So when you take applications year-round, you have to be eligible to participate. And to be eligible, you have to have farm records with the Farm Service Agency. And so with that being said, once you get eligibility with FSA, then you can apply for our program. Not only our federal program, but also have state programs under TACD, Tennessee Department of Agriculture. With talking about EQIP, we have actually a sign-up going on right now, and it's actually been extended to the end of this week, the 11th. So if you've not got an application in, you can actually give our office a call. You can look us up on the internet. You can just Google Tennessee NRCS, and there's actually some sites on there that you can go and actually locate an office, and it should provide our numbers that's on there. So that being said, if you have any interest of practices such as what we're standing here at High Tunnel, we're going to be discussing cover crops. That's another practice that we'll be discussing that's eligible through our programs, EQIP, and also the state TDA. So with that being said, I would advise anybody, if you're interested, right now will be the time to go ahead, and we can actually take applications by email, by the phone. So basically a lot of our offices are still closed. That or we can try to meet in person. So via email, telephone, either way, so just give us a call. It's a pleasure once again as we look forward to today. Standing here beside me is Chase Hicks, and his district consultations here in Bradley County and Pope.
I'll step a little closer so hopefully everyone can hear me. Like Jason said, we're standing here in a high tunnel. This high tunnel was funded through the EQIP program, and this high tunnel is about 6 years old, if memory serves me correct, and it's been in production basically since it's been up. And you can look around, it's starting to show its age a little bit, but for 6 years old, I think it's doing pretty well. For the high tunnel, we expect it to last 4 years. So here at the farm, they've done a really good job keeping this up and keeping it in production. Just a little bit about what we require in a high tunnel. As you can see, we have some rows of some greens, and everything is in the ground or on the ground. That is one of the requirements that NRCS has on a high tunnel. Is we want everything has to be grown on the ground or in up to a 12-inch raised bed. So as you can see right here, this is ideal. This is what NRCS wants to see. Even though it's outside the lifespan, here at the farm they are still growing in the ground, basically growing year-round as much as they can. Here on the sides do roll up to create some ventilation and flow during the summer, as it is when it gets really warm in here. Or everybody's got toboggans on today. As you can see, it's about 40 degrees, maybe a little chillier, but there's about a 30-degree difference between here and outside. It's actually kind of nice in here. This is one of the practices that we do. It's becoming really popular. It's fairly easy to qualify for this. Basically just be growing vegetables, cut flowers at your property, and then just be able to get a farm number with the FSA office, and then you're eligible to apply for one of these high tunnels. Again, our deadline is December 11th of 2020, so this coming Friday. If you would like to get on the list for one of these, just contact your local NRCS office. Jason, have I missed anything?
No, I don't think you have. You've done a good job explaining. Like you said, this is a very popular practice that we do through our NRCS EQIP program. Most basically, we've got a maximum amount that we can cost share on, and generally what you're looking at here is a 30 by 72. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually about our max that we can do per EQIP year. So you can do smaller, you can do or bigger, either way. But we have a maximum we'll pay up to, whether if you're a historically underserved client, beginner farmer, social disadvantage, or limited resource producer. But yeah, and it's there's different cost share rates, but what we pay on is by square foot, and it has to be a manufactured high tunnel. So that's all I've got. I guess we'll turn it back over to Seth, and he can introduce Jerimiah and Durbin.
All right, thank you, Chase and Jason, for that overview of high tunnels. So now we're going to start focusing on the soil health and cover cropping components of today's virtual seminar. And joining me today is Jerimiah Durbin. He's a soil health expert, and we're going to be going out into a field, and we're going to be taking a look at the different soil properties and different cover crop options that field can have.
All right, well, I appreciate the compliment on the expert part, but we ain't gonna lie to them, all right? They can't see us. Or they can see us, but can't see them. One thing we didn't talk about is, even though with these houses, we can do flowers, we can do vegetables, a lot of things we grow in here, we have a great opportunity to have year-round cover crops. And something I want him to show, he's got a really cool hot dog roaster here. He's gonna bring in here in a second. But, just because it's under roof, we can actually build soil health, build soil biology, and getting that texture naturally nutrients by putting cover crops in these, and get more growth and get more diversity. So this is a great way to build that soil health in a longer period to grow it. So, one thing we talk about when we do the cover crops in these houses is how are we going to terminate? All right, we're not spraying none. This is all organic, right? All right, so that means no chemicals. So tell us a little bit about your weaning recipe.
All right, so this is called a high-row weeder. Basically, the idea behind this machine is, let's say, we have decided we're going to plant this bed. We've gone ahead and amended it, but it's just bare soil. And there's a pretty healthy weed bank that has been established over time, because this was all just an overgrown hayfield before we started building it up into the farm that it is today. So to prevent the weeds from growing and to give the lettuce crop a kind of a heads up, or a leg up, I should say, in its growing, we go ahead and we light the flame weeder up, and we pull this flame weeder over the bed at a fairly slow rate. And it has flames coming out of the 5 nozzles there at the end, and basically what it does is it is cooking or boiling any weed seeds that are near or at the surface of the soil on this one bed here. The weed seeds have a little bit of water still inside them while they're alive, and basically that water heats up and it explodes or expands enough that it basically kills the weed seeds. And also anything growing on top of this bed that may be a little dry or whatnot gets burnt up. And so you're able to take this flamer over the bed once or twice, depending on how much residue is on top that you need to get rid of. It does not work if you have a lawn already growing on a bed. In that case, you'd have to turn the bed over. But if your weeds are just barely starting to grow, or if it's just a brand new bed that you're getting ready to plant in, it does a pretty weeds for at least the first, say, the first little while before your plants have to start competing with them.
Seth, what's another way? You know, you're talking about tillage, you know, to kill those weeds, but plastic. That's another way that we can terminate as well, correct?
Yes, you can go ahead. I guess there's a couple different ways you can do it. One would be, I believe it's called solarization. And so basically, it's taking a piece of plastic, sheet of plastic, and laying it out across wherever it is that you're wanting to grow crops in the future. And basically, it's better off if you do this during the summertime when it's really hot. And so the piece of plastic, the ones we've used have been black on one side and white on the other. The white side is in contact with the dirt, and your black side is exposed to the sunlight. Basically what that's doing is the sun is hitting it and it's heating it up. And with your lighter plastic, the white plastic, in contact with the ground, it's enabling any weed seeds or any seeds in general to germinate and start to grow. However, it's warm, it's possibly a little damp, but there's no sunlight, so those seeds are never going to go anywhere. There's not going to be any growth that's going to be happening with them, and so it's basically just going to germinate and then die. And so in the summer, I believe it's about 4, maybe 6 weeks that you can leave the plastic in place, and then you can remove it, and you may have to go a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, just depending on where you're at. But once you've removed the plastic, you should just have a bare, blank slate of soil that you can begin planting in. Everything should be gone at that point. But at least in our experience, the weeds and the grasses and whatnot will begin to germinate again once the plastic has been removed.
Perfect. So let's kind of change gears here. All right. So we can see right away where you're standing, where I'm standing. We've got a significant compaction, right? Wheels rolling in it. What's another good way or some practices that we can do so we're not constantly compacting and degrading these walkways or these runways?
All right. So a couple ways you can do it, but I think the one that Jeremiah is talking about is by using a cover crop to go ahead and loosen the compacted soils in between the beds. And one way that you can do that fairly easily would be to put down a tillage radish or a daikon radish in between the beds in the walkways. What that does is the radish has a very long root, and so it'll just burrow itself, continuing to grow down into the soil, and as it continues to go down, it is breaking up the hard, compacted soil that you've been walking on. Now, obviously, you're in a high tunnel. These are walkways, so you're going to have to walk on or around the radishes as they're growing. So they may not get as large as they would out in the field that you've cover cropped and you've left alone for the duration of their life, either before they get terminated by humans or terminated via the weather in the winter. But it'll still break up the compaction and help out the soil.
And at the same token, to add to that, you know, even if you kill a few, the benefit you're going to get from those radishes or whatever those grasses growing is going to be far beyond what you're going to terminate and kill anyways.
Right.
Because you're able to keep those soil lattices open, you're able to build the soil aggregates and continue to capture sunlight and turn that back into energy, which is money in your bank account here.
Oh yeah.
And even when these are off and you're not necessarily producing a profitable crop, you can still profit yourself in your pocket by doing the cover crops. And then again, you know, we can roller crimp it with just a simple yard roller. We can burn them, depending on how high things get. But we can continue to store renewable energy in these hothouses without having to, wait for another year. So some things we'll talk about as we get out here to the field. But so you're making recommendations. You have a target pH. You have your water. So some things we think about is water quality. What's that look like from the plants? Whether that's organic nutrients. We can get a soil test done. There's actually a couple things we can look at in here, to get our baseline, and that's a melon 3 test, a Haney test, looking at our carbon nitrogen ratio. So when we're building those covers or putting those continual living roots in place, we can kind of strategically grow or see an in ratio faster. So, well, thank you for that. I just wanted to kind of draw that out of you. I know you weren't going to come out with it, but I know you had it in there. So unless there's anything else you want to say, we can go out to the field and see what you got going out there.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say as far as this, I know we talked about the daikon radishes, but what do you think about putting in something like a white clover in between the walkways?
Absolutely. And a couple good things about that. The height of it's not going to get out of control. It's not going to spread real wide. And it, again, you're pumping nitrogen back in. You got the lagoons growing. I think it's a great idea. And again, you got to figure out what works and what you're trying to grow and how big that plant gets. Or, So again, that's just kind of one of them context things. What works for you? What seed costs and return profit look like to you?
Cool. All right. Well, unless you have anything else to add, let's head out to the field.
I think that's all I got. I don't see anything I can eat in here, so I guess we can leave. I don't know why they picked noon. I mean, I gotta eat. I don't know what the problem is here. They got chicken out here, so I think we can have some chicken wings or something. Go ahead and we'll head on over. Where we going? Out here to strawberries?
Yeah, so the field that we're going to be heading over to is actually on the other side of the farm. So we're gonna go ahead and start hiking on over.
And I think it's important while we're walking. We want to make sure we stay 6 feet apart. So my buddy Jason here, I got to back up just a little bit. His arms aren't quite long enough, but we got our 3-foot yardstick here. Yeah, so my position with TACD is a soil health specialist. My job is to go around and not just talk about cover crops and soil health. We've all heard it. So now I get a little bit deeper. We talk about testing, analyzing those tests, helping make recommendations for fertility, organic, non-organic, pH, Haney, PLFA. Depending on where you're at, there's no wrong level. But my position with the state of Tennessee is to come out and help you understand and make you more profitable, more confident in what you're doing. So I can be found on TACD.org. Type in my name, Jerimiah Durbin, for Tennessee Soil Health. You'll see a lot of other great articles in there from former my Cubs. Great guy, got big shoes to fill. He's got a lot of videos and write-ups in there, and look forward to adding to some of that, hopefully some videos. But emails on there, phone numbers on there. If you have any questions, concerns, need help. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know, and I'll hook you up with whoever it is you need, and we'll get it resolved either way.
We've got a wheat field on the other side of the farm, and we have this covering down because we tried to do emmer wheat here in this section. So as you can tell, the wheat has started to germinate and come up. There are a fair amount of weeds coming up. The main reason we have this sheet of agribon down here is because the chickens come in here, and they were starting to eat the wheat as it was in the ground and began to germinate. So we didn't want that. So we covered the seeds pretty soon after we got it planted. And given that it is early December, this covering is protecting the wheat in more ways than one. One, it's protecting it from the chickens, so they don't eat it. Two, it's also protecting the seedlings. It's keeping the ground temperature just a little bit warmer, so the seedlings are growing better. It's also protecting some of the soil moisture that is there as well. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add.
I really wasn't even sure why it was there. I knew you weren't trying to kill anything, but I thought I'd call you on the spot because I thought it had to be something cool or you wouldn't have that laying there. So, and again, we can take care of that chicken problem. I mean, it's lunchtime. You got the burner over there. We can have some chicken. That's like fast food, isn't it?
Something along those lines.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right, so we're gonna go now where over to the strawberries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Considering that on the live video, I don't know if it would be faster to drive over there and the access point. It's either hopping
you guys want to do? You want to walk? You want to drive? Okay. All right, we're going to walk it. Oh, yeah. Well, we could probably toss you over the fence. How long have we been doing this strawberry patch?
I've been doing strawberries for the past, well, on this farm I've been doing it, this will be the second year. Last year I had strawberries on the other side of the farm. This was all brand new soil, brand new fields as far as growing is concerned. As far as all the pastures go, this used to be a farm, probably talking 40, 50 years ago, where they ran cattle, beef cattle. That ended, and this whole place was all overgrown, as tall as all of us, with just brambles, trees, etc. So we had it all cleared, and then this field, as well as the two fields over there, had become our hay pastures for the last 6, 7, 8 years. And so basically every year we have added a few tons of chicken manure, just broadcasted it up over the field. And so last year we decided to expand the vegetable growing side of the farm, and so we started to put the strawberries in over there, and they did fairly well. I didn't know what to expect with a brand new field, having never planted strawberries there, but they did a pretty good job.
So I guess I jumped the gun there for a minute. I like stories, and people on the other side of this phone here like stories. What got you into this? I mean, why not just go work a 9 to 5, collect a check, put in your 2 weeks vacation, when you want to go to the beach?
Oh, I guess you could say I've always wanted to be a farmer.
Okay.
The idea of not being outdoors very often, you know, just those 2 weeks on a beach vacation or whatnot. Oh, that's just rather depressing.
Well, you know, as goofy as it sounds, you know, everybody has a reason why they do what they do. And I can tell you I have great passion.
Yeah.
Before we got this video rolling here, he's, you know, going on about things. And we're going to get into how he established baselines on fertility and different things. And I'm sure you've done a lot of reading. You know.
Oh yeah, tons of it.
We'll continue to walk, and you could probably add to that. But yeah, I just thought the viewers would like to know what got you into it and what's kept you in it. You know, it's easy, it's something to do, but it's what keeps you in it.
Yeah, that
After
excitement.
time,
Yeah, so, I mean, ever since I can remember, I've wanted to be a farmer. I was born in South Florida, so for the first couple of years, we were living in a condo, about as far away as from a farm as you can get. And so, my parents would ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And yeah, you know, you get the usual cop, fireman, you know, etc. But farmer was also thrown in there. We can keep on walking if we want to. And so it was like, okay, that's nice, but we're in the middle of a city. And back then, all any of us knew about farms were pictures that we would see from the Midwest. Thousands of acres. Oh, thank you. Thousands of acres of corn, soybeans, wheat, different types of crops like that. Huge equipment, huge combines. And it's like, yeah, there's no way that's going to be us. So we moved up here to Tennessee. Most of the things we did was get out into the country and have more land and big garden. So that's what we did for a number of years before we got this. And we got it primarily because of the horses. We wanted to have horses just ride around, explore the property. But then we got to think about this. We have 35 acres here. And it's like, sky's the limit. So in addition to the horses, we also got the alpacas that you see here. We've got alpacas, sheep, goats, horses, chickens, as well as some livestock guard dogs. And so with that expansion on the animal side, it's like, well, we still have a ton of land that we're not using. so we started growing an even bigger vegetable garden. And over time, it got to be so big that it's like, well, why don't we start hitting some of the local farmers markets in the area and trying to sell some of our crops. And so we started doing that back in 2012, and it was a learning experience, but also one that was incredibly fun, and just, it was different and exciting to actually grow a crop or crops throughout the year and then try to sell them. And so fortunately we got into a couple of the big markets here in the Chattanooga area, and we just started selling there, and stuff's grown literally and physically ever since then. There's definitely been challenges.
Well, that was one thing I wanted to bring up. We've heard the fun.
Yeah.
It's awesome to hear your passionate story. Of you getting to live what you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
We all like the pretty things, but let's talk about what went wrong. Because we all know the good things, but what are some things you learned from? Some school hard knocks sometimes. That's lessons learned.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, and I don't want to keep a lot of time. I want to get over here and see the strawberry patch. But what's one or maybe two major things in your process? Maybe you got ahead of yourself. Maybe you thought you were going the right way, but you're like, you know what? This is the wrong direction. I got to change. What are maybe two of those?
Okay. Well, I would say the first thing. So we get out here and we started growing in the backfield behind the house, and it was all mixed vegetable production. So we had the okra, the peppers, the kale, all those different types of crops. We are a seasonal vegetable operation. We grow all year certain types of crops, and so we started planting. And the first, I'd say, 3 or 4 years that we're out here growing, everything's going good. Bumper yields off of all these vegetable crops. And then in the backfield, one year it just doesn't do that well. The okra doesn't produce like it should. Okra is a very bountiful crop.
Right.
Usually you can't give that stuff away, but it just didn't do it that year. Like, well, that's interesting. Did it last year, why isn't it doing it this year? And so that's about the time when my whole family, but myself in particular, started reading what's up with the soil health. How can we amend it? What are different types of amendments that can be added to the soil? We are certified organic, so you could say that kind of limits you in certain areas of what you can add and not add to your soils. And so I would say that's where the journey began, simply because stuff isn't producing. And so that's when we began learning about cover cropping. We were already doing crop rotations, but then seeing, adding the chicken manures, even though that stuff stinks to high heaven.
It smells like money. Come on. You're just not looking at it in the right view. It smells like money. Just ask that chicken guy.
Yes, it does. And so, just doing different things like that, but especially focusing in on the cover crops around 2015 is when we really started to hit it heavy with the cover crops, especially in the fall and winter times of the year when we're not using all of our land that we normally use for crop production in the summertime, trying to just fill those gaps and make sure that it doesn't turn back into a old hay pasture full of weeds and grasses that then we have to go back into in the spring, till up, and try to turn into a blank slate again so we can plant into.
Well, let's keep moving. I know I got you stopped. It's hard to talk and walk. I'm struggling to still go. But, you're talking about being organic.
Yeah.
So why organic? I mean, it's easy to go to the store and buy triple 19. I mean, why not? Just put it on. So why organic? Is there any sense to the biology? You're not putting all that in there? Or?
Well, I'd say for us in particular, there's probably a couple reasons why we decided to go organic. One being that we felt that without adding the different chemicals, the different herbicides, pesticides, a lot of the synthetic fertilizers to the crops, one, we figured it's going to more than likely help the soil biology. The living organisms that are in the soil, sometimes adding the different chemicals and whatnot can have a detrimental effect to the soil and the living organisms there, but also we didn't want to have the food laden with all the pesticides and chemical additives that can sometimes happen with them. So we figured, if we as a family are wanting to eat food that's healthier, food that we're already growing ourselves, why wouldn't we want to pass that on to our customers? So that's pretty much the reason why we decided to go the certified organic route.
Awesome. So we talked about growing the cover crop. Why you go with organic? Do you ever graze your cover crops? I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to terminate. Is there a benefit to grazing them?
I would say there is a benefit to grazing them. We haven't done that necessarily, just because, and you'll be seeing in the field that we're going to, while we could put up some temporary fencing and block out the animals, our animals are dispersed. And a lot of times when we've tried to do that in other scenarios, they'll either just go through the fencing or get all tangled up in it. And so, but like he was saying, you can put up temporary fencing, and if you put down like a cover crop and then add the animals to it, there is I'd say a pretty significant benefit for that. One, and correct me if I'm going off here a little bit.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. This is your show, bud. I'm just getting to be in your world. Go ahead.
So let's say that we got a cover crop or any type of crop growing. If you have animals brought into it and they begin to eat that crop, it's stimulating growth, as the crop is, it's being eaten.
So what's happening there is it's being pumped. Okay, that plant is just like our body, our blood, the chlorophyll in that plant. So our heart pumps it, cycles it.
Mm-hmm.
When those animals, when they eat and they nibble, that chlorophyll is going up in that plant, right?
Yep.
So when that gets chomped down, it's the path of least resistance. It's got to go somewhere. So it puts those root exudates back into our soil.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, now we have the saliva, the bacteria from the mouth of the animals. We have the urine.
Yep.
Mike Hub used to always say, we get our free lunches. We got our, we got urine, we got nitrogen. We have the manure, the poop.
Yep.
And all that. This continues to build that biology, and don't be so hard on the animals. There's a lot of dumb people out there too. So, I mean, but willing to admit it and work from it. That's what I always try to do. Now when I'm done. But I think that's probably the next step as we get to looking at your property, because we're always trying to figure out how can we each get better. Because I've learned things from you today, even if it's just small, and prove it to yourself. As you got into this, I guarantee you, some things you went both feet in, and other things you're like, let's just do one row of this, see if it sells.
Right.
So I think it's one of the things you got to prove it to yourself. And once you're comfortable there, I come in the driveway. There was no fence on them, whatever them things were over there.
The alpacas.
The alpacas, yeah, that word. They were staying there because the food's there, right?
Yeah.
They'll do
And
the
their friends over here.
And their friends are over here. They'll do the same thing. But again, you got to get that level of comfortable.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll keep moving. These guys are over. They're probably standing up taking a nap if I know Bill. Probably fed him too much. You heard this in the news. Yeah, me too. I seen that. I'm like, man, I'm gonna float. I don't know.
So over here, I'll give a little bit of an introduction about the field that we're going into. As I mentioned earlier, this entire place was a farm years ago with cattle and had since been very much overgrown. This field that we're just walking into, I got the use of it from a neighbor, and it was also very much overgrown. You can kind of see the fence rows, how overgrown they are. Just consider that overgrowthness to be covering the entire field. So I went ahead and I bush hogged it. Wound it all up. This was the first time in about 30 to 40 years that anything had ever been done to this field in recent history. Being a mixed vegetable operation here on the farm, I took this field and subdivided it up into different sections. It's a 6-acre field. So in this first acre here, I just had mixed vegetables growing. Peppers, tomatoes, summer squash, watermelon. And then in the subsequent acres going down the field, there was watermelon, winter squash, popcorn was one crop that I wanted to try out in large scale this year, so we had about 4 acres of that. And then we finished off the field with about another acre of winter squash. So that's all the crops that have been grown this year for the first time. And so as those crops finished, I went ahead and started turning under the field. And for the majority of this field, it's going to be put into a cover crop, with the exception of this first section here. Now maybe I shouldn't say the exception, because while we do have strawberries planted on raised beds, they were planted in about mid to late October. The walkways, and we can go ahead and walk down there. The walkways, I wanted to put down some type of a cover crop that would help amend the soil, because this stuff has not been amended for years. So I went ahead and went to the local co-op and got a 50-pound bag of tillage radishes, and I put it down in between the walkways. Now, the reason I did that was because I wanted something different. In years past, I have put down cereal rye, I put down wheat, both as a cover crop so I can keep the soil in place. I'm not always fortunate to have a flat-ish field to grow in. And sometimes, especially during the winter, we get those heavy rains, I start seeing my field washing away, and that's not a pretty sight. But for me, at least in between the rows, I have a huge problem with trying to manage the cover crop that I put down. The rye, the wheat, it's pretty. It's nice looking this time of year, and even in the early spring. It's maybe about this tall, which is about what I want it to be, but then it just grows and grows, and I'm having to be out there with a lawnmower, a weed eater, trying to just manage it because it's trying to choke out the strawberries that are growing in the beds.
So let's catch your breath and go. So a couple things you said that I want to go back to. So plow has always been a cuss word in my mouth because it causes erosion, degrades the soil, tears things up. But in specialty crops, as much as we don't want to say it, at times we have what we call a factory reset, a hard reset, because we have been overgrown and weed control is a problem until we can start to implement, whether it's a hard pan or unwanted. So you have to turn that over, okay? But now we're starting to learn that we can put more cover crops in there and terminate. Now, you just said the reason you put the dicons is because the rye got too high, right?
Right.
And management becomes a problem.
Yes.
So one thing I want to point out is whether you've been doing this a while or not, if you're starting something new in a new area and you want it to fail, go with the annual cereal rye right out of the gate. Because you'll quit wanting to do it because, like he said, it'll get out of control. So you taught us something there for those of you that haven't done it. But when I'm picking a mix, the first year whether it's a 3 to 5 species cover crop mix blend, I want it to terminate waist high. That way, you know, historical is not always historical because they talk about average rain events. Well, we haven't had one of them in I don't know when. We've had a lot of rain these last couple of years. And it could turn off next year and be a drought. But in the event it doesn't, when it's super saturated, we can't crimp and we can't terminate. And we're organic, so we're not spraying chemical to kill it. So it's always good to have something that'll terminate waist high until you can learn how to manage it. So great points. Just want to kind of add a little bit more weight to this.
Definitely.
So anyways, I'll let you get back to discussing the radishes and that sort of thing.
Okay. So basically, we can walk down if you want to pan it. I ended up having to make a few more beds than I was originally anticipating, so that's why these radishes in these first 3 or 4 beds, or the walkways here, are not as tall and established as some of the other ones that we're getting to down here. So, like Jeremiah was saying and what I was saying earlier, with doing the radishes, I'm putting those in because A, they're going to be easier to terminate. Last year I did radishes as a cover crop mixed into winter wheat and field peas, or not field peas, sorry, the Australian winter peas, and I was able to terminate all of those crops a lot easier. Once these radishes get established, they're going to get tall, but they're very easy to break the tops off, break the leaves off, you know, etc. And so termination in that regard is not going to be an issue. Now,
Robert, can I have that shovel, please? Let's talk a little bit about your soil and the conditions of what you have to deal with, so they understand a little bit more of why that's in there. So, can go ahead. How deep is your topsoil around here on average?
Oof. Few inches.
You don't have a lot of room. And so I'm just a little fella. I probably only weigh 100 pounds, but if you can hear that nice crispy crunch sound, there's a lot of gravel in here. There's a lot of rock.
Yep.
And I don't know how well I'm gonna get this out of here, but
You got 10% remaining on your battery.
anyways, if we look at this soil, you bring the camera in here for the batteries to get dead. Or here. Go ahead.
I'm on this side. Yeah.
Get charged into the big one there. But as we look at the soil texture, okay, we know that top 2 inches is where most of the phosphorus and the biology is at. Now, it's throughout the soil profile, but it's our top 2 inches is where most of that's alive immediately, okay? That's where our root systems are getting its immediate nutrient availability. And so, as settling into this, we have to make an evaluation. So I call it your baseline. And what that is we have to assess what we have, okay? When you guys bought this property, you know how much money you had in the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had a plan, whether you got a loan or paid cash, doesn't matter. But you still had to build that business plan out, which was your baseline of, okay, here's what we can afford to do this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the ways to make that baseline is soil sampling.
Right.
Okay. If you want to grab that probe, Chase, I'm going to let you pull a soil sample here. We're going to talk about it. It's very important because these plants all have different pHs at which they thrive and grow better at. Okay. So for us to be able to figure out what our pH is and see if we need the lime and what type of lime, whether it's calcium or magnesium, we need to pull some soil samples. Now, the main thing to focus in on here is if you go ahead and step on that, is 6 inches, okay? Unless you guys are doing something different, we need to take 6-inch cores. Now, you can go deeper, and as we pull this out, which that one kind of fell apart, let's do one more just to make it pretty. It's nice and gummy here. Here, try it one more time, see if we can keep it in the tube. But 6 inches is what they base our soil tests on. So when we send it in, get a Melic 1 or Melic 3, or even a Haney, and we can get to that in a minute. Yeah, pull it back. So there's a few things when we're doing this. You know, I tell people, whether you get real intense or you're just going to go across the field, you know, pull 12 or 15. Stay 25 feet off your tree lines. We're not trying to fertilize the trees. Stay out of your waterways, your low areas. It's good to, you know, get 12, 15 feet off of those waterways because you're still going to have plants growing there. But if you want to give yourself a false reading, get in those waterways and those ditchways because that's where all the fertility goes. It doesn't get in the soil when it rains. And take all that, put it in a sample, and take it. You know, there's several different labs. You've got some tests there that you had ran.
Yep.
And your local FSA or NRCS, USDA offices, they can help tell you where to send that, or you can contact me and I'll help you. And not only that, when you get them back, we can discuss. But when you're pulling these plugs, now you can tell this is deeper than 6 inches. But we're looking at a few things right off the bat. All right, we felt what that soil felt like pushing into it. So we know it was rocky. Okay. We know what kind of growth, unwanted, desirable weeds we have growing. We can look at the color, the texture. So if you look at that, there's about 2-3 inches of a chocolate color here.
Right.
Okay. So this is a good point. If you're just starting with this field, you know, we take pictures. We carry cameras with us everywhere we go. Take a picture. It's already going to be dated and time-stamped so that you know where you're at now. And so as the journey goes and you're having days that you're like, man, is this really paying off? Am I really benefiting more than just money here? You can go back and look at your soil texture, okay? It's important to pull these soil samples the same time of year, you know, just kind of keep that consistency on how alive that soil is. You know, if you're going in the fall, it's going to be dormant. In the spring, as the soil warms up, it's becoming alive. The biology is getting to work. When it's super dry, it's not a good time to take a sample. For one, you're going to feel like you're jumping on a pogo stick on concrete. Two, a calcium-magnesium relationship is going to be way out of whack because those molecules are dry. And you know, as well, you don't want it soaked underwater because again, everything's going to be out of balance. So after a good rain, you know, you guys, we had some rain last night. It's not ponding, but it's still wet enough that we get the probe in the ground. And so just stay at a consistent 6 inches. Okay? You know, I could pinch that off and knock that in my bucket, and I would have had my 6-inch sample, and the rest of it I just knock it back on the ground. Okay, and then send that in for analysis. Well, that's going to help us make our chemistry physics recommendation. That's online. And and that would be on NP and K and maybe some minor nutrients if we see something out of balance. Because yield is only going to be as high as your least nutrient, okay, or least available nutrient. And sometimes that's rain, okay, because if it's not saturated, it's not in a form you can take in, or the plants as well. So the other thing is building a cover crop blend. You know, there's multiple reasons why we do things, okay? And as we talked a little bit ago about not jumping in with both feet and getting something you can't manage, carbon nitrogen ratio is a huge balance, because if you look in the soil health wheel, you've got chemistry physics, which is our things of that nature. Biology and plants, they're just like us. They need oxygen, they need water. But also that biology aspect. And the way to measure that is a Haney PLFA. So we can look at that carbon nitrogen and get that back in balance, because we can have, you know, lots of grasses, lots of carbons, but also lock us out of it. And the same token, we have lots of nitrogen and tire ourselves out of it. So it's in that balance that the biology will thrive, just like us. You know, if we don't eat enough, we're weak, we're feeble. If we just got off Thanksgiving and we're a little bit stuck here in the middle section, we're probably not going to go out and run a 5-mile marathon, unless there's a bear behind us. Okay, and right now there's no bear, so I'm not going to run. But we got to get that in balance. So those are some ways to get our baseline to adjust. And again, that's with, you know, yearly, maybe 3 years. Gifts, you know, and some people can't smell, and you know, we're in that time of the season, not even the COVID, but just, you know, allergies and different things. But when you can, it's good to, you know, break it up, smell it. How, you know, is it earthy smelling? Does it have any smell? You know, is there exudates going on here? What's the soil aggregates like? What's the porosity? You know, if maybe it hasn't rained for a week and then it rains one night, go out and see how deep that water penetrated. Did it go a 1/4 inch and run off, or did it start to soak in the soil? You know, how well is my soil aerating itself and building soil aggregates? So those are things that don't cost any more money. And we've all got a shovel laying around. So at the end of the day, take record of it, because there's going to be days you're like, why in the junk am I even doing this? It's not benefiting. I got to get out there early, plant it, terminate it. It's not worth the hassle. But if you'll stick with it, it's like marriage. It's all pretty in the beginning, and then times get tough, the babies come, nobody gets sleep. But then it all pays off later on. And it's the same thing with soil health. You'll have that aha moment. But if all you're staring at is dollar bills, you gotta look at the whole picture. Okay? Same with what we're trying to do, you gotta balance. So that's all I've got, but you know, those are just some quick tools and things that you can have so you can start to minimize the risk and keep yourself more profitable. Building your soil, you know, healthier food, healthier soils, healthier plants, healthier animals, healthier humans, and it's a big circle. So I'm gonna let you get back. I've been stealing your thunder, but I just want to talk about that for a minute.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for our December virtual presentation. Stay tuned. We are working on getting January's lined up. So in between now and January, I hope you all have a happy holiday season. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.